All right, so today what we're talking about is replacing a thermostatic expansion valve and where it has the external equalization port actually in the suction line inside the evaporator coil. All right, so when you replace the next TXV, what you want to do is you want to actually unbraze this out. It's almost it's the size of a capillary tube. All right, it's a very small diameter tube right here, brazed into the large 5/8 suction line. So you need to unbraze that and braze a new one in. Here's the new one right here. Okay. There's the hole. You want to make sure that you don't close that hole in, all right, while brazing. So you got to kind of heat this up, pull it out, okay, and then put the new one in while it's still hot and while the braze is still in molten, okay. Push that in and then braze that whole new piece in, okay. You have a choice of doing that or um, you could potentially um, come up with something like this, like a little extension with a flare and a 1/4 inch nut, and braze a new piece onto the suction line. But that's going to end up being probably outside somewheres, or if you can fit it in the evaporator coil box, it's usually kind of a tight spot in there. And then you can try to push this into there. Now, obviously, this is not going to make a very good capillary action braze joint right here. All right, that's not going to make a really good joint. Now this as well, it's just the pipe going into another pipe, and it's not really going into a swedge or something. So you got to pick one or the other here. This is two ways of replacing a TXV. If you have the TXV only has the external equalization port as a small diameter tube like this, like a capillary tube. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this and unbraze this and put the new one in. I need to make a couple things clear here. Whenever you're brazing refrigerant lines, there's phosgene gas present. The very first thing you should do is recover all of the refrigerant out of the system. You never want to heat the refrigeration lines up or the air conditioning lines up with refrigerant inside of them. You never want to heat them up with regular pressure in there anyway. The only thing that you could do after you recover all the refrigerant out is you could run 3 psi of nitrogen through this with one end open, and what that'll do is that'll knock down on the oxidation, all that black sooty stuff on the inside of the pipe when you're done brazing. But once again, one end has to be open while you're using a nitrogen flow regulator for blowing the nitrogen through, and that will be done normally at the outdoor condenser. You need to make sure it's flowing through, not closed off. Anyway, the second thing you need to do after making sure all of your refrigerants out of the line, and you've confirmed that the TXV is the problem. You confirm the TXV is the problem because you've taken off the bulb, and maybe during the cooling, you've taken this off of a semi-cold coil, and you've put it in a hot cup of water, and it's done nothing with your superheat. Okay, maybe it's lost refrigerant out of the sensing bulb, something like that. If it's non-adjustable, if there's an adjustment, maybe you can make an adjustment in the bottom of the TXV. All right, so after if you figured that out, you know that the TXV is the culprit, you're trying to put a new one in, or maybe you ordered an evaporator coil that was for 410A, it's brand new, but you need to switch out the TXV to a R22 TXV in order to put it into R22 system, something along those lines. After all that's out, you still need to move your TXV bulb. So we want to get that out of here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take that piece off. This copper plate here, they usually give you copper so that you do not over tighten the TXV bulb onto the copper pipe. So they give you a copper strap normally so you don't over tighten it with a, say, stainless steel hose clamp. All right, so we're going to slide this out of the way, and we're going to pull our bulb right out of here. Okay, we've got the bulb out, and we're going to set that off to the side because we don't want to heat anything up that has pressure, right? And so if there is any type of refrigerant left in there, we don't want to heat that up. So we're going to target this right here. So once you have your gloves on and you have fire extinguisher with you, maybe a little cup of water, a wet rag, once you have all that stuff in place, then you are basically ready to go. Make any shields out of metal that you need to make sure you're not burning anything that you don't need, that you don't want to burn. Take a tip that's the right size. So for this, We're probably going to use a A5 or an A8. You don't need a very large tip for the cap tube, which, you know, the cap tube, I mean, you could use A3, which is a very small, this we're using acetylene torch setup right here, okay? But basically, you do need to heat up this pipe, all right? And that takes a little bit of heat to do. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get ourselves started here. And we're going to unbraze this pipe out, and we're going to braze the new one in. One more thing maybe you should be aware of is the capillary tube here. If it is dark in any shade or anything like that, what you can do is put your finger on the end, and you can take a little steel wool and clean up the copper. So you stick your finger there on the end, and you can clean it up. This way, you don't get any of that dust inside the copper pipe. Anytime you clean copper for brazing, you want to make sure that you do not get any of that, any reaming pieces in there, or this the dust from steel wool. Okay, so now we're ready. We're kind of shined up there. This is going to be going in. It's going to be below that, and we'll be ready to go. Give me a sec. Let me put my gloves on. You can get fancy and heat this with a torch and bend it over, or you can just bend it like this. All right, so you know, either way, I don't need to be fancy with you. So and then you can use a wet rag to cool the pipe down. All right. Once you use that wet rag to cool your pipe down, you are ready to test. One more thing that you need to be aware of is the phosgene gas that could be inside of the pipe. Anytime that you have refrigerant oils inside of a pipe and you heat them up, they can break down. It's very, very dangerous. What you need to do is make sure you're in a well-ventilated area or wearing SCBA, not scuba, underwater scuba breathing apparatus, but a self-contained breathing apparatus. All right, so there's the two things you could do to avoid breathing in any phosgene gas from the breakdown of refrigerant oils while brazing. Okay, so that's that. There's another way that you could do it, like I said before, where you could put this into a pipe right here, and you can go ahead and braze that. Check out another video on how to fix a capillary tube. All right, check us out again at acservicetech.com and AC Service Tech channel.